Hello everyone. Today we're doing issue number 79 of the Star Wars Build the Millennium Falcon. So I'm doing some detail work at the moment of the inner details for the struts. And here's the parts that we've got so far. So I've already built the structures on the sides, all the detail on the inside there. I've redone the tubing. So we're working on the inner sides now. Now this will fit onto the front, obviously, of the Millennium Falcon. So it's currently Saturday night. It's a nice quiet night in Australia. So here I am just building this detailed model, and yeah, thought I would go live with you guys and start building it. There is another one that I've done when I was going live last week, so you can have a look online if you're interested at looking at that. Okay, so these obviously go in here. So one thing that's interesting about the Millennium Falcon, when they built it in 76, I believe the date was, when they were building it, getting it ready for filming. A lot of the detail, they built the original hull of the Millennium Falcon as a disc, obviously, and they painted it black so that when they scarred the actual model after they'd painted it, they could show the black or the battle damage underneath the hull. But a lot of the parts that they used for detailing on the outside was made up of old tank parts from World War II and stuff like that, model kits. So a lot of these little finer details, you have a look at them and they've got things like, it's like a spring, you know, from a part of a tank. Here's got a bit of a hatch door on something. So there's a lot of, these are obviously look like tracks, part of a track from a tank. So then they've cut away. But the company that put this model together has done a lot of detail work in making sure that they can replicate that. So they spent a lot of time with the original model at Lucasfilm, in the Lucasfilm archives, and they were able to go through and make sure that they could replicate all the parts as close as possible. So according to the model kit, this is the most detailed Falcon model that you'll be able to get out there. Now the good thing about it is all electronic. It has lights, the cockpits light up. I'll bring this over. It's got it's a cutaway as well, so you get to have a look at inside it. And that part of that's because this type of stuff is all magnetic. So you glue the magnets into it, obviously, to hold it all down, and it holds it together nicely. So one of the things I like doing is when I'm building these models is just making sure that everything fits and I'm doing it right first before making the glue on it. Now what's interesting, most model kits use a particular special glue that sort of melts the plastic slightly and adheres to it, whereas this one requests you to use super glue. And I'm surprised just how strong, obviously, super glue is anyway, but just how hard it is. Once you glue the parts on there, it's very hard to take them back off again, so it's quite a good method. It's also good because you can build fairly quickly. Generally, when you're building a plastic scale model kit, like a World War II airplane, for example, or even a science fiction model kit, generally when you glue a part, it takes a while for the glue to set. But this glues fairly quickly. So quickly that there's been a few times I've had to move quickly just to make sure that the part sets in properly. So there's some of the detail that you can see there that I'm currently working on. So we've got 3 viewers, so hello, hello, and hello. Hope you are well. around the world. So I've been a little slack, I guess you could say, with some of the videos on YouTube at the moment. And a lot of the reason for that is one I sort of thought this year I'll start working on some sound, different tutorials with sound. So I started to push more for sound files, looking at both learning for myself as well as trying to show different tips for you guys for doing sound effects. But I will get back into Adobe tutorial shortly. Been quite busy at work as well. I've recently had a application go through for a new position there, and I was successful, so I'm very happy about that. So it's for a permanent position. So I'm an instructional designer for the government. So what I do is I build training packages, teaching people how to learn. And funny enough, I use Adobe programs to do that. So Adobe Captivate, for example, which is an e-learning program. And I use Photoshop every day. In fact, I've been using Photoshop for, I think it's 16 years now. So I started using it way back when it was version 4. And funny enough, I don't have that many Photoshop tutorials on YouTube, but it is something I should start doing a little bit more on. I like doing matte painting work and stuff like that. Okay, so we got the detail in there. So you can see some of the tubing I've already put on there. Now I am going to repaint this. This is the model as it comes from in the packets. You probably notice it's all metal and construction as well. It's quite strong. It's going to be very heavy when it's finished. What I want to do though, once I've finished painting it and putting a lot of the detail work into it, I want to put together some close-up still images of it. I want to do some video on a green screen or blue screen, depending on which is the better color for it. And I'll put together some little Star Wars ship packs, I guess you can say. So instead of using 3D models, try and use the original real-life model. So you guys can use that for your short films, or if you're wanting to make a visual effects reel and use those type of things, I can have them green screened unkeyed, and you guys can key them out yourself. That way you do a bit of work on it and you can throw it into your own show reels and stuff like that. Alright, so the next part, according to the instruction, I'm going to add the outer details now. So the outer details are listed here. You can see with the model, it's got a picture representation. It's also numbered. What's interesting about this model kit, it doesn't actually have the individual numbers on the plastic parts, but it uses pictures with the numbers in the, I guess you could say, the instructions of this magazine. So that the Build the Millennium Falcon from DeAgostini, I can't even say it, DeAgostini. So DeAgostini is the company that put it together, and every week you buy it for $20 Australian, so it could be different pricing wherever you are in the world, but it costs me $20, and there's exactly 100 issues. So I'm up to issue 79. I'll just show you some of the stuff that I've created, so just bear with me. So that's the top part, as you can see. So I've already got the antenna, so the antenna moves. And we've got this hatch part here. What's interesting, I was saying before, it's magnetic. And some of these parts are just sitting there, but there's magnets in the back of it. And when you're building it, the magnets actually click on, like so. That part's sitting there as well. And it sits there nicely, so it's a hidden feature. This part here is actually magnetic. This magnetically sits on there. And underneath that obviously will be where we've got the hologram chess set, for example. And here's the underside. So the underside's done. It's all ready to go. We've got the, I haven't got this part connected yet, but this is the ramp that comes up and down automatically. There's a light strip under there. There's the motor. So I'll be able to show you all this when it's all running. So, and that's meant to be okay. So I'll talk through some of this video. Obviously, some of it I'll just be working. I just wanted to have something in the content of just behind the scenes for this. I was actually going to video each 100 episodes, I guess you could say, putting this model together. But two things. One, there's 3 other YouTube channels that have already done this. So I think that would be sort of a waste of my time. And secondly, having 100 of these videos, one after the other, without any other content, it's probably not what you guys signed up for. So I'm just going to do 2 of these, and then I'll do a review of the actual model when it's been finished, along with how it works. So, you know, the lights working and stuff like that. And then we'll put together a nice little pack for it. And when I say a pack, it'll be that green screen pack I was talking about. So this model took, well, it's 100 issues. It was weekly. However, it did take just over 2 years. That was because some of the parts didn't come in each week. There was a few issues from the company. I don't think it was actually the company that built it, but it was a company that was importing this product into Australia. But they quickly fixed it, so that you know, obviously these parts will come through back again weekly, but there was a slight hiccup during it. Another thing with this model I'm finding is everything fits perfectly. Generally, when you get a model kit and you're building it, some parts need to be slightly modified to fit. The only thing I found recently, and it wasn't, might have been the one before this one, actually. Just bear with me. There was a slight hiccup in the instructions. Yeah, it's this one here. So with this one here, they're saying part 1 is this strip here and part 3 is this long strip here. However, when they get into the detail, they're saying glue the pins on 3 into the arrowed holes, and it's showing you that strip there being number 3. However, it's number 1. So that's the only thing I picked up on it so far, and I'm, you know, up at issue number 79. So being issue 79, don't think that's too much of an issue, and like, I'm really happy with all the detail in these parts as well. They've got a slight aging whitewash, I guess you could say, or blackwash over the particular parts to make it look like it's slightly aged. And now that's, if you're building this, there's two different ways of doing it. One, you build it as it is, you don't paint it. You might get some paints and do some detail work on the insides where it's meant to be dark, for example, in here. But I've just painted them black. I am going to detail them a little bit more. I have thrown a little bit of grey on some of the parts now. You may not be able to see it because of the lighting I'm using at the moment, or the fact that I'm currently on a iPad. But the second way is you're able to go through, and this magazine has some of them when you're working on parts. It'll actually show you the full detail. So I've ordered a special paint called AS20. Now it's a particular paint, it's a navy gray or navy white. And that's what the original Millennium Falcon, as close as you can get to the paint color scheme when they painted it. So when they built the model, they made sure it was all painted black. Then they put all the detail on it as they were painting it. And they went in there and they scraped and put holes and, you know, obviously damage that's from lasers for hitting it to age it. And the black underneath it assisted in bringing it up. And the paint that they originally painted over was that AS20, or it's not the original, but that's as close as you can get to the original color. So there's two options. Obviously, you can build it straight out of the kit, or, and it does have some of the paint already on it, or what we'll be doing is a little bit later on. When I finish putting this together, I am going to get in there and detail it as close as I can to the movie. So therefore, I'll have a nice model kit sitting in my Star Wars room. Now, you guys may or may not know, I do have a Star Wars room. So yes, I'm a 40-year-old man with a Star Wars room. However, it's got a lot of figures, original vintage ones in there. I think the one I'm most proud of, I've got part of the Sarlacc pit from Return of the Jedi. So there was a gentleman and a group that went out to where the original Sarlacc pit was filmed during Return of the Jedi back in 1982-83. And I think it's not called the Badlands, it's called Death Valley, I think it might be. Way out near that way. It's meant to be a lot of sand dunes. Maybe it's not Death Valley. Death Valley might have been, yeah, where they filmed. No, it might be called Death Valley. Anyway, him and a group of Star Wars fans went out there and they found the location in where the Sarlacc pit was originally filmed. Now, when they filmed Return of the Jedi, they created a false floor lifting. This is in the desert, by the way, or the Great Sand Dunes in California. I think it's California or out in Nevada. Around there anyway. My detail on it's not too 100%. Anyway, they went out there and they found the location where they had filmed it. Now, when filming finishes, as you guys probably know, when they're filming Star Wars, they use a lot of large scale set pieces, and when they're finished, they rip them straight down. They don't leave them there usually. Now, however, there is some out at Tuscan, I think it is. There's some original stuff from Episode 1 and the original Star Wars movie. In fact, they've still got the Owen Lars homestead out there in Africa. It's North Africa. However, with that, they ripped down the set. A lot of the parts of the timber were sold to lumber yards as secondhand wood, because obviously they'd used it and it was already cut up. However, parts of the original sail barge, some people ended up with those. However, the rumor goes the film crew, or the people, not the film crew, the people that were pulling down the original set piece for the Jabba's sail barge had actually dug a hole and virtually threw all the bits and pieces and all the other little stuff they didn't want to drag away and sell. So anyway, these guys went out there and they did a bit of digging around, and they did come up with some parts. Some of it was the original sail barge, and some of it was some of the framing from the actual frame that was put together. But some of it was the Sarlacc pit, and inside the Sarlacc pit, it was sort of like foam rubber glued with sand on top of it. And then there was, the tentacles and stuff like that from the Sarlacc. However, he was able to get some bits and pieces from the original set piece. So I've got some of the original parts of the Sarlacc. It's about, it's probably about that big. It's about, 3-4 inches in diameter. And some of the original sail barge with the original paint on it. So, and there's all photos that he sent me from when he went out there. And he only had some limited bits and pieces. But I begged him, and I was able to just pay him a small amount of money and have the item shipped to me, and which I've now framed it and put it up on my wall. So I've got part of that sail barge and the Sarlacc pit. I also traveled to the north. You'll probably see that in one of the videos on my YouTube channel, to where they filmed the background plates for the speeder bike chase. And I've got part of that tree that you see Luke and Leia on the speeder going under, the one that's on a slight angle. There's a part of the tree in the movie. It's actually a branch from that tree. However, obviously it's been some time. The tree's still there. A lot of the bark has fallen off. You can see that in the video that I've got on my YouTube channel. Just look under speeder bike chase sequence or film location. So that's there. But I got part of that as well, which I've got framed on my wall. But yeah, so I'm a little bit of a nerd. Trying to figure out where. One thing with this, obviously, is they're showing me where the holes are for this particular part. That's probably because I got it upside down. And there it is. And it looks like it goes there. And that sound that you probably heard is someone unsubscribing. I've got one of those YouTube counters. I got it to motivate me. However, I do recognize when people sign on or unsubscribe. And there it is, being resubscribed again. It's quite interesting. Sometimes someone does it, plays little tricks. I think I know who it is, but I'm not too worried about it, because it doesn't actually affect your channel at all. But anyway, you can log on, log off, and you'll hear it go on, go off. So, right, so we're going to be moving some other parts in here now. So number 3. Now I'll show you just some of the detail. This is part number 3 that they're talking. I'll just make sure you can see that. This is part number 3, right there. It's 2 little dots. You wouldn't even notice it, to be honest, on a kit, but that's the amount of detail they're putting into this model. That part there in the middle is cut away, and this is part 4. Those 2 little bumps right there. But they get glued onto part of the frame. Let me just move this over so you guys can see. Up here. So let's do that now. So I'm just going to get this part and put it on the end. So that there, right there, is part 3. It's very small. But the detail that they're putting on this model is amazing. So, it's great that they're doing it. Okay, so I'm going to lay that down. Let's clean that part up with a razor. Now, one thing I am doing, funny enough, is one thing, whenever you're building a plastic model, and I don't know how many of you guys do that, you get a lot of this plastic offcuts. I keep that. I want to do a tutorial coming up on how to custom make just your own spaceship. So let's say, for example, you want to make a short film and you want to have your own spaceship in there. I want to show you guys how to make something like that. So that's showing those little bits of detail, so you can give your, very much similar to what I'm doing at the moment, giving your model depth, so it looks like it's got all these little I can't even say the word, intricate, there we go, intricate pieces in it. Some of these pieces obviously you don't even see in the movie, but who knows, if you make a model like this, and I'm sure that's why they did it when they built it originally, they would have made it as detailed as possible for George Lucas, because he may have at some stage wanted to get really close to the model in filming, and he may wanted to show that detail. So if you build a model with all the detail there in filming, then it means that you have those extra possibilities that you may be able to get closer to the model when you're filming. Okay, so put that part in there. And we're going to do the same with the other side. Yeah, so I've been an instructional designer in the Australian government for 6.5 years now, and most of that time I was acting, and I've been acting as an APS 5, and that's sort of like the next pay scale to an APS 4. That's how it works with a pay scale. And then I was acting as an APS 6 as a senior instructional designer, and I was able to secure that position permanently. So it means that I'm now permanently a instructional designer. And funny enough, one of the main focuses in the department that I've been trying to bring to my team, a lot of them, they're designers, but some of their, I guess the detail on the software is limited. So I'm finding that my skill sets are transferable to them guys, so I'm spending a lot of time teaching them how to be instructional designers well, not teaching them to how to be one, because they already are one. Teaching them things like editing, for example, something new to our team. I've been doing videos for work for some time now for them guys. I've flown to Canberra and flown to Melbourne multiple times doing videos over the last 3 years, especially in the last 6 months. I did spend some time, I did a Twitter update not too long ago when I was in Canberra. And yeah, it's quite enjoyable. I enjoy doing what I'm doing, so yeah. The only thing is the video editing that I do is very basic. Funny enough, I do try and add something a little bit different to it when I'm doing my job, but when you're doing videos for corporate videos, there's not much you can do with it except for basic edits, some nice title sequences, and make sure that you get the pacing all nice. So that's pretty much all you can do when it comes to that type of stuff. But I have been teaching some of the guys there some basic editing, in which, in fact, I'm doing that next week. I'm teaching them how to do video editing and using those principles for Adobe, Audition. Not Audition, sorry, Captivate. So Adobe Captivate. We've got a basic editing function in there. I'm going to show them how to use that, but there's one of them that I'm going to be teaching Premiere Pro, so CC. The department has the latest technology, so we always have the latest Adobe products, which is really great. So when they're coming out, we get them. So the only problem is, though, sometimes our systems can be lacking, so I do use my home PC sometimes when I'm doing some stuff. So, okay, so I'm going to move on to another part now. This is saying part 7. It looks like it there. Yep. So I'm not too sure if you guys are into model making or not. I know some people don't do it anymore, unfortunately. It's a bit of a shame. I think there's a lot of skills you can learn from model making, to be honest. So especially if you want to start making scale models, and even for the movie industry, they, funny enough, do, and they still do, create large scale models. So if you ever see, for example, the prequel trilogy of Star Wars, it's always good to have a look at the documentary making of. Some of the best making of behind the scenes stuff is found on the Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith DVDs. And they have a lot of behind the scenes. And they show you, especially in the I think it is Revenge of the Sith? No, it is Attack of the Clones behind the scenes. They show you how they used modeling techniques to make Coruscant using models. So a lot of the buildings were scale models. And also, if you're interested in that, if you see the latest Blade Runner that came out last year, that also shows you Weta Digital in New Zealand, creating the world of Los Angeles in the latest Blade Runner. So that also shows you a lot of the skills that model makers use there. So I do recommend, if you're interested in this type of stuff, have a look at those. Okay, so that goes there. So I'm just going to put a drop of glue. Now, one thing people don't realize is when you do large-scale modeling, so large-scale models, a lot of that, the large-scale model work, is actually done with like a blank. Let's say, for example, you're doing a building. To put some of the detail in, they just spray it. They layer the different types of paints on there to try and replicate depth, especially for the large-scale models. And you've probably seen that in the first Star Wars movie, when you've got the Star Destroyer flying over the screen. A lot of that model, if you ever look at the original model from Star Wars, actually there is a book, I've got one, the models of Star Wars, and it shows you what they did to create it, and it also shows you how they did it. Now, the Star Destroyer itself was just a large flying pizza virtually. Most of the scale detail was done up near the command center, I guess you could say, or the bridge, sorry. And you've seen they just cut lines, like fine lines with a scalpel, and they put dark, or not dark, a grey style paint in it and rubbed it into the cracks, and that's what gave a lot of the detail, the fine detail on the hull of the ship. So a lot of that was just little bits and pieces of model parts glued onto it. However, a lot of the large stuff was just simply plastic with a scalpel and a ruler going straight through, gently scratching it and then rubbing paint in it and wiping it off so that the paint slightly just went into the cracks. So it's a lot of modeling techniques are used, obviously, to do such things. So, but yeah, I've always been modeling. I can thank my father for that. We used to build model planes together, and obviously when I started getting to movie stuff, the next thing for me was building models of spaceships and anything Star Wars related. Now, some model kits do tell you to use like a small nail file, but I think when you get comfortable with a scalpel, you can just gently use it and ride it on the tip of your thumb like so, not cutting your finger obviously, and shave it, and you're able to get a really nice clean shave, which is a lot better, I think, than what you see in model parts when they file it, because it gets gritty looking, and that's something I don't like to see. So that's just my own personal taste, obviously. Some people have their own taste when it comes to model building. So as I was saying before about my Star Wars room, this will be the centerpiece of that. So when it's all finished and I've got it as accurate as possible to the movie, this will be the detailed part, or the whole craft, I guess you could say, will be on display in the center of it. And funny enough, my Star Wars room is also where I film Film Masters. It's got the red back wall on it, which was painted originally last year, I think it was, when I started to do some changes to the background. Now, I'm not too sure if anyone else that's watching has a YouTube channel, but if they do, not too certain if you have noticed, but there seems to be a little bit of decrease in viewership and subscribers at the moment on a lot of channels, and it appears that YouTube is currently doing tests at the moment, and they're trying to discover what people work with. For example, they're making it so thumbnails are disappearing for some people, and just the standard video thumbnail is there. And they're doing that because they want to work out their analytics properly. Now, the problem is, I think some of that is actually affecting some people's channels. So that could be something that's going on. It is something I've noticed. But, okay, so let's have a look what we've done now. Now, one thing you'll probably notice here, this looks very familiar to some people. This is actually what appears to be part of a transmission from a tractor or maybe a tank or something. That type of look there is a transition box look. So I'm not too certain what that's from, but it may have been cut in half, one on each side, and used for the original model when they were doing it. So there is a forum out there that has done a lot of research and finding what model kits were used in which ones. Some of them, funny enough, some of the model kits are so rare that they're actually worth a lot of money if you can get them. So there is some people out there that are recreating parts of the model, original model. Now, this is based on the ILM 32-inch, I think it is, scale movie prop replica. So that's the one that they used for when they were filming The Empire Strikes Back. So this video is probably gone on long enough. It's gone for 41 minutes and still counting. So a lot of this is just me talking about some of the model stuff. However, I just wanted to show you guys what I'm currently doing at the moment. Even though this isn't a tutorial, it is part of what we're doing for Film Masters. So putting together this Star Wars model, it's taken me a little bit longer than I thought it has, mainly because I haven't had the time to sit there and just work on it continuously. But I will have it hopefully finished by next weekend. I've only got 20 issues left, so I'll get it to the stage where I can do a review on it. Then I'll maybe do a tutorial as I'm doing some model painting on it to get it all painted and get all the detail done. And then you'll get a pack that will be a green screen pack, as well as some images that you can use for your own matte painting. So if you're doing a Han Solo, even though unfortunately Han Solo movie did not do too well at the box office, supposedly lost $80 million. It is a shame. It's not too bad a movie. However, I didn't like what they did with L3. The robot was very distracting, if I can say at the minimal, for the film. But anyway, so this is Michael Freudenberg finishing Film Masters Video 2 live stream for building the Millennium Falcon. This is the parts we've got now, and I will talk to you soon. Oh, and if you want to become a Film Masters subby, you can like us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And until next time, don't just film it, master it.